This health crisis has affected our lives and our economies and generated fear within the food service industry. However, this crisis has also encouraged some deep changes within the entire industry. So today, François and Jerome will make the point with us on how renew the existing food service offerings, and we'll try to imagine how to adapt new solutions to this customer experience. So thank you for joining us today. And now I pass the microphone to our guest. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's really a pleasure to introduce that talk with DELIVERECT and Jerome. I'm François BLOUIN. I'm CEO and founder of Food Service Vision, which is the leading consulting and research company for the food service industry in France and basically in Europe. We have chosen this topic, and we'll introduce Jerome just afterwards, because we really, everybody knows that delivery has been one of the most important game changers in the food service industry these recent years. Just to share a few figures, delivery accounts for 6% of French restaurant industry right now. It has contributed, less known, to 75% of the total growth on the market. And that kind of turmoil change has been more or less the same for other countries. And in that movement, definitely there has been the emergence of new players. We have seen first the aggregators, Uber Eats, Deliveroo, etc. But also we've seen emerging the dark kitchens, and more recently, new technology solutions, new layers that are helping the industry to be adapted to that new market. Last figure for that introduction. For sure, we have all been touched by the COVID-19 crisis and its consequences. We know that it's touching and influencing the whole industry. And if we take just one figure to understand why we have chosen that topic, basically the market has declined 75% more or less, but the delivery market has resisted, and depending on the countries has declined minus 30% in France, more or less stable in the UK. So we can consider that this is really a very good point of resistance of the food service market for the coming months and years. So right now I'm happy to introduce Jerome, who is Chief Revenue Officer at DELIVERECT. DELIVERECT is a fast-growing tech startup that connects third-party delivery platforms. We will try to understand what that is. Jerome, he's a highly knowledgeable guy about tech in restaurant industry because he used to be the CEO of Lightspeed before that and joined the DELIVERECT team a few months ago. So Jerome, thank you to join us. Maybe you want to complement and tell us what is DELIVERECT so that the teams knows who they are talking to.
Of course. Thank you very much. Well, as you said, DELIVERECT is a tech company that started recently, about 18 months ago, with a view to bridge the gap between the aggregators and all the different marketplaces and the restaurants themselves. And just a small correction, I wasn't the CEO of Lightspeed, I was the managing director for Europe. Anyway, it gave me good enough exposure, and that's where the idea came to create DELIVERECT, because what we noticed, and it's very clear that a lot of restaurants wanted to embark onto the delivery and take advantage of all the new platforms that were there, including their own platforms. But then very quickly, a lot of restaurants realized that it was actually creating some operational challenges to operate deliveries from different locations. And the idea of DELIVERECT was to be able to bridge the gap, to connect on one side with all the marketplaces that exist in different geographies, and on the other side, build connection into point of sale systems. Because as everybody know, point of sale systems are the key operating systems of restaurants, and making sure that all orders are being streamlined and sent into the same into one central place was a key thing for restaurants.
Maybe before we go in the details of your solution, if we go a step back,
yeah.
How was your feeling about because we are here to share about the state of the industry, how was your feeling about the state of the industry and the delivery dynamics a few months ago, and the dynamics that you can see for a few since the crisis?
Well, for the last few years, I think since maybe 2015, 2016, we've seen the advent of a lot of marketplaces and you know, a lot appearing and a lot disappearing. But I think the market is a bit more stable now, at least in main countries in Europe. But there was a massive trend already in terms of change in consumer behavior. This idea that at the tip of your fingers, you can order anything you want at pretty much any time of the day, whether it's a complete meal or just a box of ice creams. There was this underlying fundamental trend happening where people want immediacy and they want choice, and they want it quick. And so what happened now in the last few months, or in the last couple of months, or the current crisis has just magnified this, right? It's like it has become the only choice available was delivery or was takeaway, right? So now, it's creating an acceleration in that space, and I think that trend is here to stay, because you know, I think COVID will have left some pretty significant impact on people, and I think it will take time until we see people going into very crowded restaurants. Although you know, I really hope people continue going to restaurants, but I think the fact that, you know, distanciation is going to stay for a while.
We have a question in a live question that can be complement to what you said. How much delivery business will impact on the future restaurant experience, new normal? Like you said, I would say, and you might add something for Oscar. Basically, the main belief is that after the crisis, delivery will become part of the new normal, being one of the channels for any restaurant. I mean, most of the restaurants will have both in-restaurant experience and outside restaurant experience, whether delivery or click and collect or whatever the solution. But basically, the more agile will be the restaurants, the more it will work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the word experience here is important, because restaurants are experience places, and good restaurateurs are people that are very good at creating experiences. So I think we're going to see a lot of I would say innovation in the way people will want, or restaurateurs or chefs will want to put their or develop food for their different audiences, but taking into account that delivery and takeaway needs to be considered when, you know, even when creating recipes, for example, you know, that recipes that, you know, that live well through transport and things like that.
So point one for that talk, and I'm following the time also. Yeah. Definitely, delivery will be part of the future experience in restaurant industry. And now, if we come to the insight that generated the creation of DELIVERECT, how did it come? Why did you embed?
Yes.
That?
So what I was saying at the beginning is I was a little bit ahead on this. What we saw a few years back was a lot of customers asking us to integrate their point of sale with Deliveroo or Uber Eats and things like that. So that's a project. At the time we were with Lightspeed, and we had a lot of customers asking for this, and clearly that became it became a real issue for customers, because they ended up having 4 or 5 different tablets on top of, they might have had their own click and collect or delivery. It becomes very very difficult for a restaurant to manage. It becomes you end up with a situation where you might even have employees that spend hours retyping order in the point of sale just to make sure that the orders coming into Deliveroo or Uber Eats or Glovo are being sent to the kitchen on time. So what we created is a system that directly connects into the marketplaces and has a bi-directional connection with marketplaces, and on the other side connects with the point of sale systems. So we have done tens of integrations with a lot of the point of sale systems available on the market. The big ones like Symphony, NCR, but also the new ones like Tiller, L'Addition. We have about 40, 45 now supported point of sales, and we keep adding to it. Really, the idea was to provide a multi-channel management platform where our restaurants were able to not only connect their point of sales and like almost like a gateway, but also manage their menus. And actually, when doing deliveries in a scalable way, managing menus becomes really important, especially when you operate on multi-locations. What we observed is a much faster delivery time. Obviously, there is no time to wait. Orders go directly to the kitchen. There is a lot less errors because you don't have to retype, so there is no human errors, and it's saving full-time employees. Ultimately, the conclusion of that is also a much better user experience because meals are there is no errors. There is no better customer experience, better profitability for restaurants as well. Better integration of sales figures into accounting systems, so that you don't have to spend time reconciling all that. These are the very pragmatic things we are solving for restaurateurs. It's about providing the digital infrastructure to be ready to have a industrialized workflow when it comes to delivery.
And while you were talking, I was showcasing a few slides of your solution. I think everybody can download, and we'll find the details after the conference. But this conference is not about advertising. It's more about understanding why this is happening now. I mean, what are the drivers that will make restaurants use your solution, and what are the kind of restaurants you're best adapted to?
What we noticed was that as soon as the restaurants that started using DELIVERECT were restaurants where delivery became about 10% of their revenue. And so it became significant enough that they started looking at it and saying, well, we need to pay attention, because it's one thing to do delivery. It's another thing to make money with it. It's another thing to have a proper margin on it. Obviously, restaurants have to pay the marketplaces for bringing the traffic and customers to them. So it's not such an obvious proposition to do delivery profitably. So one of the key drivers was, as soon as people are starting to do a lot of deliveries, they're starting to see the operational challenges that it represents. The other use case was we have a lot of customers that have started to operate multiple virtual brands from the same locations. So you can imagine that if you operate 3-4 different virtual brands from the same location on 3 different marketplaces, you end up with 12 tablets behind the counter, right? And you receive orders constantly on it. We have customers that every night they do 300 orders. I mean, it's a big burden. So these are use cases. We also serve dark kitchens and ghost kitchens, which clearly they are. It's almost like a manufacturing process for them. So there is a question I can see.
Yes, there is a question. The first one was about the price position, but you more or less addressed it. Basically, right now, the true cost of delivery is most often is not invoiced clearly to the final consumer. It's more a question of global price point that will be showcased by the restaurants of what we see. But maybe you have something to add to that question.
Yeah, I think. Well, at least in the UK, for example, I can see that more and more there is a charge for delivery, and I think people are starting to understand that, you know, if they want their food quickly and they don't want to walk or go and pick it up, there is a price attached to having people doing all this for them. So I think this is changing. I think you know, people will understand that, you know, the cost of convenience, and it will be replicated into the prices and added to their bill.
And if we talk about costs, you just spoke briefly about the dark kitchens or ghost kitchens, whatever the name, but those kitchens who cook but don't serve with a room with the waiters. How do you see the development of this kind of solutions on the market?
It's been interesting because there's been quite a few that came and didn't last very long. I think there is something fundamental, in my opinion, in this is the brands of food and the type of food. But I think the ones that are working right now are the ones that have developed brands that have strong followings and that resonate well with certain audiences. So whether it's, you know, vegan food or you know, Asian food or whatever, but very segmented. But ultimately, what we saw is that dark kitchens or ghost kitchens cooperating with existing brands that had a strong following already. In this case, it usually works. But if it's just to be another burger or another, you know, poke bowl, that might be short-lived, in my opinion.
Yes, if I were to complement, add something to your question, Mark. By the way, hello. Basically, what we see right now in the crisis times, the best non-brands succeed better than the ones that are not known. And to build a brand is quite a long process. So, dark kitchen will evolve in different ways. We will have dark kitchens only, restaurants operations for well-known brands like McDonald's or Burger King or whatever, that will create some dark kitchens operations in places they think it's the right solution to address. Very good dark kitchen operators, specialists that think everything with a digital mind and are very processed and might be agile enough to invent new brands, can be solutions, but otherwise that will be a tricky part, because it's really it's a job in which you depend also on the platform. So if you're not the best one, you won't emerge on the Uber Eats or Deliveroo or Glovo or whoever. So we answered. we'll come back to the questions, but maybe before, as I am following the time, going back to you and your model. So DELIVERECT, 2 years ago, the solution was not existing in Europe. You started very recently, raised, I believe, 16 million euros for your development. So how do you see your future development as a company?
So yeah, indeed, we just raised a Series B funding. The way we're going to use this money, first of all, we are expanding in different regions. So we've opened offices where we need to add more staff. So we are currently present in 5 countries. We're going to add probably a couple before the end of the year. And on top of that, we're going to invest quite a lot in our product sets and our integrations. Adding features that are relevant for dark kitchens or people operating virtual brands, for example. So adding features around productivities. But as you can imagine, it's a market that is evolving quite rapidly as well. The APIs of the different marketplaces are evolving very, very often and changing. So we need to adjust to that. But also there are some new players coming into the markets. Yeah? And we talked quite a lot about click and collect. Click and collect is a big topic right now. There are lots of players doing click and collect. So we have quite a few integrations to do in all the different geographies we have. And ultimately, also when it comes to marketplaces, I think we're going to see the advent of, there's going to be new players coming in, especially, I think there are some tests with Instagram in California at the moment. There is a Google food ordering that is appearing here and there. There are some different initiatives. So we need to keep up with that and make sure we provide a platform that is future-proof for the restaurants.
And I can see a few questions. Maybe one of them can be linked to what you were just saying. In the development of your solution, do you integrate the customer feedbacks and ratings on the delivery order?
Not at the moment. And the reason for this is that this information is currently not exposed through the APIs of the marketplaces.
And can you help restaurants to negotiate with the marketplace? Question from Philippe.
No, I'm afraid we can't do this.
So what is your business model actually? Because
our business model is
for the marketplace and
so we don't, as a software, we are software as a service. So we offer our service or our platform with a subscription and restaurant pay subscription per location based on the volume of orders they have every month. So yeah, it's a very simple model, subscription based. It's not a percentage of your transactions.
Nobody asked, so I won't ask you for your fees, but
okay, sorry. It's publicly available on our website, but it starts at 49 euros and goes up to 199 euros. So.
Okay. A question from Mark Kurtz. What is your outlook on aggregator pricing models? Capping, they did in the US, capping 15, 10, 55%.
Well, yeah. To be fair, I don't have a lot of comments on this. I just think it's probably a good idea that some people look into this, but at the same time, what the aggregators are providing a real service in terms of, you know, bringing traffic and footfall to the restaurants. So there's a cost associated to this. What the right percentage is, I don't really have an opinion on this.
So
yes, Maria.
hello, I come back. You are already asking a lot of questions, so maybe I just add in one from India. If restaurants want to expand delivery business to up to 40% or even 50% of their turnover in post-lockdown, opening during this COVID crisis, how effective will be your solution, Jerome?
Well, I think the biggest share of the turnover and the more efficient or the more useful our solution would be, I think, if a restaurant, that means if a restaurant receives hundreds and hundreds of orders every day, they will see the benefit of having everything integrated into one platform and going directly into their point of sales and directly sent to the kitchens. Also, a restaurant that is really operating like this will need to update their menus very, very often. In which case, a platform like ours, where you can update a menu in one place and replicate or send that update to all the platforms in one go for all your locations, is a big time saver, and provide the agility that restaurants need to operate at that pace. So yeah, I think that would be quite useful.
Okay. And what do you think about the impact? Which is the impact on a restaurant operation and the restaurant site structure, with some unit only dedicated to delivery? Yeah,
well, it's actually something that we already saw happening before COVID. I think a lot of restaurants were, you know, especially in the fast casual space, they were already conscious of the fact that having a constant flow of drivers coming through their business could be a disruption, and they started reorganizing their retail operations so that they could have a dedicated space for that. And I think the smarter restaurants also provide a good space for drivers to wait, meaning, you know, sometimes providing them food and water and drinks and things like that, as a good way for, you know, if you're restaurateurs, you want to be sure that when a driver sees an order coming from a specific restaurant, you want to be sure that they don't decline it. And what we've seen now is kind of a, you know, everybody's trying to do the extra thing for the drivers because, you know, they're actually quite key in the end consumer experience. So having dedicated space for drivers to wait, to have clear information about when their order is coming and is ready, it will be quite important.
And I have the last question that it's like on healthy standards. If the delivery company outsources the delivery staffers, what kind of quality health standard are requested or given? How we can manage this healthy standard, especially right now in this.
For what we see, I can start, and for what we see right now, the industry of delivery is working very hard on health standards and hygiene standards to be sure that there is a no contact experience between the restaurant and the deliverer, and then the deliverer, the rider, and the consumer. And the processes they manage are quite well organized and followed up. So I would say, at least for what we can see happening in the UK, in the US, in France, even in China, right now, it's taken care of by these guys. I mean, this is the heart of their living and their business model. So if they don't achieve that goal, they will be just rejected by the market. So what we see is that the procedures are more and more safe right now.
Okay, so
I just saw a question from Markov. I can answer quickly. Yes, we would have screens like this, and we're actually developing more features when it comes to. The question is about delivery or output screens for drivers, and yes, this is definitely something we want to develop more, making sure that it's very clear for drivers when they have to come to pick up and when is the next order being ready and things like that.
okay. So I would say thank you for your insight.
You're most welcome. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you both for joining this conversation. It was very interesting for us. So now time is over, and let me thank you both for coming, and also all speakers that join us for the last 2 weeks, and also all the participants. So we had so many attendees and participants that follows us during these 2 weeks. But also, let me say, keep following us on our social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram as well. So also I want to thank, of course, to the other speakers that joined us during these last 2 weeks, and especially also our ambassador, Vincent Moore, Jonathan Dutti, François BLOUIN, Mario Bauer, that supported and to organize with us these talks. So thank you to all, and bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.